Oh, we're live. Yes, 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 yes. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha, Charles.
Brother Mel, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And I am just
Good.
setting up my little watch party here so we can get this thing viral. And there we go. That one's set.
Yeah.
And this one is going to be set right about now. Beautiful, beautiful. I know people are flipping out. Why are we on so early? Here we go. That one's set. Okay. Turn off that volume. Turn on my screen, and I'm all set. All right, Charles, how are you doing, buddy? All good, all good.
Well, yep. Today's a good day. Today's a good day. Some negative news, but I am surprised that I've been really happy today. Good
You
and
never drop,
negative news.
you never drop any F bombs today.
No, I just like a lot of like a lot of the people that have been messaging me. They just said, Uncle Charlie, don't let that kind of stuff get to you. And they're right, because I was the first one telling them that, but I guess the boogeyman had slipped in through the cracks somehow and got into my inner soul. But yeah, I'm loving it. Today was just like they can go, because like anything else, monkeys fall out of trees, right?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. And I just want to toast everybody. It's not. Uh-oh. There we go. Hang on. Sorry. This is what I call the bat phone. Unfortunately, the bat phone has just been turned off. So anyway, yeah. So this is. I usually drink water or coffee. Somebody asked me yesterday, Mel, what is that you drink in your cup? Tonight it's a Monster drink because I'm a little exhausted. I had to go into the office today and actually was very, very busy. So the Monster drink just gets me through times like this. I know as we get people coming on, we got a great show tonight. We got Senator Ron Kouchi and Lance Segawa. Will introduce them in a little bit. Lance is already in the waiting room. He's anxious. And we'll let Charlie do the introduction of Lance in a little bit. We just again, Charlie, today we had a lot of the people are starting to pay attention. People are starting to ask the questions. People throughout the state are now coming forward. We know Maui is just catching cracks, and it's unfortunate. You got people coming forward to the media because they want to share their story, because a lot of hiccups along the way. And we understand this is a new virus. They call it a novel virus, but at the end of the day, I mean, we should be prepared for anything. And I feel for those families that are going through some rough times. I think the biggest concern I have right now, and I think it was in the I don't know if it was in the Hawaii Tribune or the Maui paper, but Senator Donovan De La Cruz, who's been on our show a couple of times, basically called out the State Department of Health Director Bruce Anderson, saying, "Hey, man, you withheld information from the public on some clusters," and I think, I commend Senator De La Cruz, because I think we've been saying this now for quite a while.
Oh yes,
And
we have.
I think about time, our legislators and our elected officials, our leaders, start calling or holding some of these people accountable, because this is real life. This is real life. This isn't a game. This is serious. And we just want the people to understand that we always said we inform and we educate, and that's what we try to do. We have built a group of followers and viewers that share with us whatever information they're picking up, and of course we do the investigation, and we let the public know. And some people, very very few people don't like that, but at the end of the day, when this is all said and done, at least we'll have known that we've gave out the best information that we could, so people can make smart decisions. You see, the worst thing can happen is we take this lightly, and then and then people get complacent, and then people get sick, and then God forbid people pass away. So that's what we try to do. And And
Well,
thank you,
today, today we learned that we had another incident of infection, and 95 years old, no underlying conditions. She just happened to go to Maui Memorial, and she got infected. And I talked to one of the family members today who said that this individual, there was no screening when they went to the hospital on the inception of it. So, it's sad. So, for those who feel like, no big deal, I mean, try talking to this family, because this individual now has a viral pneumonia. And at 95, it can be a little tricky right now. And they're kind of treading lightly. So hopefully,
people got to remember and realize that when you get put in the hospital, you are not allowed any visitors. This lady's daughter was on the news tonight talking about how hard it is not to be able to stroke her mom's hair and her face and reassure the mom that everything's going to be okay. She gets to call them on the phone, but again, so this is not a joke. But anyway, we do have Ron and Lance in the waiting room. So we are going to bring Ron and Lance in right now. There's Ron Kouchi, Senate President Ron Kouchi, and there is Mr. Lance Segawa. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Senator Kouchi, you look like you're irritated. There we go. That's much better, much better. Lance, I'm not sure where Lance was there. Oh, there he goes.
Hey, Lance.
Here.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Thanks for joining us. We got to go through this pre-show routine that we got to do, and it's very simple. It's this shirt, everybody. The Mel and Charlie Show, Flatten the Curve, COVID-19 2020, and really what it is Kirk Correa on Kauai. He owns a T-shirt business, and he came up with this idea. He says, Mel, I'll print a shirt for you guys. You guys go out and sell them on your show. I don't want any money, and let's donate the money to charity. So we did that. We sell these shirts for $10. This is for all the listeners out there. $10. Again, Kirk doesn't take a penny. We don't take a penny. All our money goes to Hawaii Community Foundation. We have made so far over $600, and we're trying to shoot for $1,000. And so all of you watching, if you haven't already ordered it, this is a really cool shirt. I don't know which one is. It's hard to tell who's Charlie and who's Mel, but it doesn't really matter. It's just that we donated.
I'm the Hawaiian looking one.
Yeah, I'm the short one. I'm the short one. So anyway, that's pretty much it. And then before we start, this is going to be a powerful meeting tonight. It's going to be a powerful show tonight. So please, right now, hit the share button and start a watch party. We want this to go viral. And because the information you can get tonight, I think, is a lot of people been asking us questions. Senator Kouchi has been very open in the media, on TV. Saw you today, Ron. Great job on with the Star Advertiser. That was fabulous. We can talk a little bit about that later. But for right now, I'm gonna let Charlie. Charlie, why don't you do the introduction for everybody? Knows Senator Kouchi again. He's been on. Welcome back, Senator. It's your third time. Awesome. But maybe you can introduce Mr. Segawa.
Sure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for joining Mel and I on Facebook Live. And we are very, very fortunate to have our Senate President, Ron Kouchi, but we're especially happy to have an individual that a lot of you have asked about. This gentleman is the current CEO and president of HHSC, or the Hawaii Health Systems Corporation, Kauai region. So that covers both Kauai Veterans Memorial Hospital, as well as Samuel Mahilona Hospital over in Kapa'a, and all the clinics that are associated with that. Please welcome tonight. This is Mr. Lance Segawa. How you doing, Lance?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity. If you don't mind, I just want to make one minor correction.
Yes.
Not president. My official title is regional CEO for HHSC Kauai region. So
okay.
Just to be accurate. So, but thank you.
Okay, you heard that, folks. So it's
Okay.
not president, it's CEO, but in my books, he's still president. Okay, so anyway, we got the records.
Thanks, Charlie.
And Lance, we want to start off by since we've been doing COVID discussions, Mel and I, and actually this inception has been the brainchild of Mel, and we brought on numerous guests from Senator Tulsi Gabbard to the Lieutenant Governor to Dr. Miskovich, and the list goes, and the list goes, and Ron Kouchi and Donovan Dela Cruz, so the list goes on and on. But
we had Tulsi Gabbard too,
Yeah.
Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard.
And so what people have been asking for is, someone from the hospital system, because they would like to know about, what's being done in the hospitals. A lot of questions involve, capacity. They always talk about the capacity should something happen, because it's right now we're knocking on wood, we're lucky, but should something ramp up really fast, what's available. So that's why we thank you for joining us tonight. And that's the reason why you're on with us tonight. So maybe why don't you address that if you can right now?
Okay.
About what it holds.
Well, again, before I start, I just want to say thank you for giving me this platform to share information about what's been happening with our hospitals. So we've been very, very busy planning, and it's literally weeks of kind of internal coordination to prepare for the surge. I'm sure everybody has heard that term, the infection surge for us here on Kauai. And what's been really, I think, beneficial is we've been working closely with Wilcox. So we've been looking at the 3 hospitals and what makes sense for us here in Kauai, how to be best prepared for that potential surge. So in terms of KVMH, capacity-wise, we have a plan that could potentially convert all of our beds into acute beds, up to 47 acute beds for potentially COVID-infected patients. Now, do we think that that's going to happen? Based on what we're tracking in terms of the infection rate here on Kauai, we don't think so. But our plans are prepared for that event. So between KVMH and Wilcox, we can handle over 100 patients plus. And then we also looked at ICU capacity, because everyone's been hearing about patients that get so sick that they have to be in ICU. So we also looked at that particular issue. So we have a pretty good idea of what we can handle across both hospitals. Now, Mahelona, we made the decision that Mahelona would not handle any COVID patients. We needed one facility that would be clean for our long-term care residents. So KVMH has currently 20 long-term care beds. If we needed to, we would relocate those patients or residents to Mahelona, and we would keep Mahelona clean from infected residents. So that's the plan. Now, part of that is resources, making sure we have the right people with the right skill, including physicians and providers. And of course, everyone knows the issue around PPEs. And so we need to have adequate supply of PPEs to be able to handle that surge. We're also working very closely with the state emergency task force, the Healthcare Association of Hawaii. They're doing a lot of coordination. So we're not alone here on Kauai. We are connected to the statewide effort. And DOH is a big player in all of this. So I would say at this point, we're in good shape. We have the surge plan ready to go. And then again, knock on wood, and we've been very much blessed that we don't think we're going to get overrun, by the infection, but we're standing ready.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Lance. Now here comes the $1 million question.
Okay, go ahead.
And it's it pertains to opening up our state to visitors again. And as you know, and if you've seen our show before, Mel and I, having been investigators in our previous career, we always took a real hard stance about quarantine, having individuals come in and getting proper quarantine. Because right now, we believe that the quarantine that's in place now really has all these loopholes because it's pretty much voluntary. And usually when you associate quarantine with someone, it's very hard for an individual to say, okay, I'm going to quarantine myself. You know, it's going to be, you know, if I come from the airport, okay, I understand I need to go to my hotel, but I'm going to stop off before I get there. Then you defeat the purpose. Because the purpose is if you're asymptomatic and you're a potential carrier, you don't want to be spreading that. What's your outlook with knowing your capacity size for both hospitals on island as well as with Wilcox? That should we have an influx? Because right now, everything is almost at a standstill when it comes to visitors. But say if we got an influx, how is the hospitals prepared? Because you're going to have to go into that mode, right? The preparation mode.
Sure. You know, I mean, that's a great, important question. I think it's kind of multifaceted. So, number one, we've been protecting our patients, our residents, our staff for weeks now. And the way we do that is we screen everybody. We don't let anybody into our hospitals, including employees, without being screened. So we have to maintain that. Now, we have within our organization, we've had policies that pretty much tell our employees that they need to protect themselves because what they do outside of work is really important. In addition to that, we follow the lead from our mayor. So Mayor Kawakami has been pretty much on top of issues. Now, ultimately, whatever the governor decides, whatever the mayor decides, we need to be ready. That's why we think testing is such a critical piece of all of this. We need to know what's out there. And I will admit that the asymptomatic individual is the one that scares us the most because we just don't know what's there. And so, you know, we depend on some of those major policies about opening up the county to the outsiders. And I think as that develops, we have to really adjust what we do. So I'm comfortable with where we are right now, but I'm also very, very interested in knowing what the governor is going to do, what the mayor is going to do. And, you know, the one good thing is a lot of smart people are advising them. You know, so I believe the science part of it is really solid, and I'm confident that we're going to do it in the right way, which is gradual, making sure that we have the infrastructure to be able to handle it. But right at this moment, we're protecting the hospitals really, really tightly.
Okay. Well, Mel?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, that was always a concern from day one. The concern was always the capacity, the medical capacity for us here on Kauai, the number of beds, the number of ICU units, and as well as the ventilators. So, I mean, I think that was always the issue. And that was the issue I think a lot of people were concerned about. If we should get the spikes, you know, will our island be able to handle? And remember, Honolulu, they got the majority of the resources, but they also have the majority of the population. So on a normal circumstances, we can always medevac somebody to Oahu. But if this thing should blow up statewide, the concern was always, did we have the necessary resources? So I know Senator Kouchi talked about the quarantining or the potential direction that the state may be going earlier. But before we get to Senator Kouchi, I did have a question, because the question that keeps coming up, Lance, is about testing.
Sure.
And I guess the availability of testing. I think we now know that the capacity is much higher.
Mhm.
What I'm hearing from people, and I've been hearing from people, is that we're being denied the testing. In fact, the doctors are not as lenient or flexible with signing that order to get the test. And I know you folks just opened up a drive-through testing facility. So can you spend some time on that, please?
Okay. So it is true that previously the criteria that was provided, the primary care doctors, was a little tight in terms of what kind of symptoms needed to be present before they would consider recommending a patient for testing. So the timing's perfect. So today, Dr. Berman actually issued a directive to all the primary care providers of Kauai regarding loosening up that testing criteria. So one of the big issues, and again, this is something everyone has been hearing about, is you needed to have the presence of a fever. So that has been relaxed now. And so I think that's going to make a difference in terms of potentially testing more people. The other thing to keep in mind is, there are more tests available to us. We have a good supply of PPEs, and we think throughout the county, we're only going to ramp up more testing. So our KVMH drive-through testing is currently 4 hours, Monday through Friday. If we need to, we can expand that. Wilcox will continue their 7-day-a-week drive-through for, I think it's 8 to 5. And they're going to do a drive-through in Kapa'a. So we're going to actually have 3 locations that we can provide drive-through testing. So I see that only going up. And that combined with loosening the criteria should make a difference.
So generally speaking, I know because we get a lot of messages, and I know that there were people that went with coughing, difficulty in breathing, and maybe it was not having the fever, and obviously given some antibiotics, sent to go home and hydrate and rest. Do you know, are you aware of what the new, is it like 1 of 4, 2 of 4? Is there a checklist that you got to meet a minimum amount of symptoms before these doctors will go ahead and order the test?
I actually have the criteria in front of me. So if you give me a second, I'll pull it up, okay? Then I can actually share the criteria. So.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We got a lot of people watching and waiting. We've got over 300 people live right now watching. And Senator Kouchi, while he's pulling that up.
Yes, Mel.
You want to share with, I mean, I watched your thing. I'm not going to steal your thunder, man. I wanted to, but I was very proud to call you my senator today.
Well, actually, before I talk about that, 2 things. I have enjoyed being on the show, and I've appreciated the ability to reach so many people, especially since I've been here on Oahu the whole time. But when I would sit at my desk, my wife could see everything behind me. And when I would get off of the meeting, I'd have instructions of what was out of place, what I needed to clean. And so I'm trying to do this on a couch where there is a limited view of the rest of the condo. So I don't have a honey-do list when we're done tonight. But I'm sure that angle's going to be wrong. The glare off my glasses is
Well, I got to tell you, the first time you were on, I told Patsy, did you see his room? Looked like a college dorm. He had the water bottle. And Patsy said, well, he's alone in Honolulu. I said, I know, but anyway.
I've since had to clean up the back.
Hey,
But-
Ron, I tell you something, but your lovely wife, at least she's very kind to you. My wife told me the first time that, honey, looked like you had no pants on. I go, why? She goes, you forgot your pants was hanging on the door behind you.
But anyway, what I'd like to talk about is going back in time. It wasn't so long ago when you had the employees of KVMH out on the streets of Waimea Town, sign waving, and very concerned that maybe KVMH and Samuel Mahilona were going to close. And there were 2 CEOs that came in prior to Lance that had to make some hard decisions and try and get us on the path to being financially solvent. Lance is the 3rd that has now come in, and I want to say that he and his CFO, Christine, have done an incredible job of really changing the bottom line at KVMH. And Lance can only be as effective as the support of his whole team at both hospitals. So, while I commend Lance and Christine with their leadership, all of the employees have pulled together, and this hasn't been an easy process. There has been pain, there has been sacrifice, but when we're facing global pandemic and a severe health crisis, I can't say how comforting it is to have KVMH operational, Samuel Mahilona operational, and it's through a lot of hard work that we've gotten there. And then a little over a year and a half ago, I found out that this gentleman who initially was hired to do the farm to school program was transforming the menus at the Kona Hospital. So I called Charlie's CEO. Stephanie was about to become the board chair for the Kauai State Hospitals, and told her about this farm to school program guy who's now trying to get it to the hospitals. She showed me Lance's retreat goals for his leadership team, and on his list, he had improving the meals at the two hospitals. And so we were able to work together. We had the consultant in, and they have 60, 70% of what's on a plate for every meal is locally sourced. And then we're able to work to bring this to the schools, which started on January 6th. The reason why I bring all of this up, besides the hospitals being open, because of the work that was being led at KVMH, all of these distribution systems and relationships were set up with Kauai Shrimp, with all of the various farmers here on Kauai that were starting to supply the food. And while I was so excited about what it was doing at our hospitals, at our schools, and at the Kauai Correctional Facility, little did I know that we were really laying the groundwork for the ability to feed people who really need help today because of the amount of people that are out of work. The last report I saw from Stephanie, they've served over 4,000 meals. They've distributed over 3,000 pounds of fish. I don't have the tonnage of the fruits and vegetables that have gone out, the canned goods and other materials, but that is the critical things that the hospital can wind up providing for the community. And it goes so much farther beyond just the physical building, and the reach of what KVMH has done from that kitchen to help the rest of West Kauai is just immeasurable. And really, a big mahalo needs to go out to Lance and his team, to Stephanie, as the board chair, and the one who has nurtured the relationships. And so I really wanted to highlight that for all of the people who are looking in and probably don't even know the synergy that occurs, the vision, shared vision between Lance and myself, independent of each other, but immediately recognizing a good idea when we saw it, and the collaborative effort to make all of this work. So, Lance, thank you, Christine, and to the rest of your employees for a fantastic job.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you very much. And Lance, thank you, and appreciate what you guys are doing for the community, especially on the west side. But yeah, Lance, I think we're ready for you now with the new criteria.
Okay, so this is the new criteria that Dr. Berriman shared with all Kauai region or Kauai County providers. And so we sent this out to our Kauai region doctors. And again, I just want to emphasize that the bottom line decision is always that of the clinician. Yeah, the doctor has the ultimate authority and judgment to make a decision. So these are just guidelines. So the acute respiratory illness to be kind of focused on, with or without fever, okay, would be a cough, sore throat, shortness of breath, congestion of the nose, congestion, nasal congestion, loss of sense of smell and taste. So again, some of these things you've probably been hearing about across the country. and combine that with at least one of the following. The individual is age 65 or older, live or work with individuals 65 or older, again, because of the family kind of spread, a serious underlying health condition, or live or work with someone with underlying conditions, live or work in an aggregate or congregate housing setting, high-risk community. You traveled out of Kauai County in the previous 14 days, and exposure to a confirmed case of someone with COVID-19. So you can kind of already see that it's much more broad. And again, each clinician has to use their judgment. But I think this gives us a really good place to start from in terms of more testing. Definitely.
So the top half of your criteria,
Right.
was that any one of those and any one of those from the bottom, or collectively you got to be experiencing all what's on the
What Dr. Merriman is telling everybody is the top part is at least one of the following.
just
At
one?
One. Yeah.
So if I have a sore throat and I had just come back from Honolulu in the less than 14 days, I qualify for a test.
Yes, based on this, you would
Okay.
qualify. So
Got it.
again, I got to emphasize though, your physician has to evaluate the total situation, yeah, with you. And so that's a conversation that you would have. But at least the guidelines that's coming out of Department of Health is, will provide some guidance, yeah, to be able to make good decisions.
I understand in the beginning, 5 weeks ago, there was a concern about the shortage of test kits. There was, nationwide, because no
Sure.
one knew how this thing was going to explode. And we were concerned. So I know, I've heard it from the Department of Health director many times that we have to conserve our test kits, and that in fact, we're only going to give this test to people that we believe is positive.
Mhm.
So what you're saying now is that has been pretty much eased off, and
Eased
because
off.
we do have sufficient capacity for testing, correct?
We do. It's if you take a look at the last several weeks, based on the quota that we had, we're not hitting that quota. And so I think what Department of Health is doing is they're evaluating all of that, combined with looking at where the infection rate is. So those two things, and they've been really on top of making those kinds of decisions about, okay, when to loosen things up, when to increase, more testing. So we're at that point now. So.
And I
And
know,
I was going to
go
say,
ahead.
though, the only thing that I'd like to say, because what we've also learned through this process, communication is so important. Clarity is so important. So I wouldn't like to define it in the terms of loosening up or easing up. The new guidelines have broadened the factors by which you would qualify to test. Initially, with the shortage, it was very narrowly defined. As more test kits have become available, we've broadened what is applicable. And clearly, one of the really critical factors in being able to broaden the definition, besides just simply having more supply, is the better data about the asymptomatic positives or infected that are out in our community. Mayor Kim was very clear the other day. The last two at the Kona McDonald's were asymptomatic. And then in this evening's news, the Kona police officer was asymptomatic and continues to be asymptomatic, although he has the positive test. So we have a good reason why, we need to broaden that because of the asymptomatics.
And
Thank you.
I think that was our concern, and we've been harping on this for a long time, because we have been told for a long time, probably the last 2 weeks or so, that we did have the ample test kits, that we actually had enough, and that in fact everywhere in a country, in the world, basically saying we need to really focus on widespread testing before we open up the country or before we open up the states. And I will tell you, they never told us. We didn't have that information of how many tests were being done on each county or in each county. And they finally and I thank the Department of Health for finally putting up the numbers. But on Kauai, we've had 1,154 tests as of the 21st, which is a couple of days ago. Then from the 19th through the 21st, in those 2 days, we only performed 26 tests. Now, I don't think that's we talk about our good numbers here on Kauai, but we're not testing, in my opinion. We're not testing enough, and we're not doing enough, in my opinion, the contact tracing. In fact, like you said, if you came in contact with a COVID positive, then you should be tested.
Right.
And you just should be. And if your workplace was one of your employees was COVID positive, then all your employees should be tested. This is my opinion. Of course, I'm not a doctor, but 26 tests in 2 days to me seems kind of inadequate. But that's just my opinion. I don't know what your position on that is, Lance. I don't know. I think the more tests we give, I think the better snapshot we get of the activity of this virus.
I don't disagree that we need to find ways to improve our testing numbers, because I think we're doing a lot of planning almost in the dark. I do trust the Department of Health and their surveillance as far as what's going on with the infection. Here at KVMH, when we started our drive-through testing, which was just Monday, we didn't have anyone test. But on Tuesday, we had 4 people come through. Wednesday, we had another 3, and today another 4. So I mean, it's definitely becoming more active. And I think with this new guidance, we're going to see more. I think for me, as I'm not a scientist, so I'm depending on the clinical people to really kind of tell us what is that number, that we need to hit. That's going to give us a little bit more comfort. So, and I know that DOH, they're analyzing all those things. So, for my part, I just want to be sure that we have the capacity and we have the ability to perform the tests, to get those, those tests processed. So,
well, I know you cannot see the comments that are coming in, but I can tell you that the viewers are very happy to hear, very thankful of how you folks have planned your strategy to address this virus. So just wanted to let you know that in fact, you just made a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable by telling everybody what you folks are doing out there in KVMH and at Mahilona. Senator Kouchi?
Yes, I want it to be clear. As of 2 weeks ago, the state policy is to test all close contacts of a positive. It happened to be announced the same day the governor announced Alan Oshima was going to head the recovery efforts. And so Speaker Saiki and I were invited to the ceremonial room that day for the press conference. And so I sat there when Lieutenant Governor Green announced with the governor present and Dr. Anderson that beginning that day, 2 Wednesdays ago, we are now going to be testing all close contacts. The Department of Health has been getting nursing students. They've graduated early, those who were in their last year, med students, and they've reached out to retired personnel to try to ramp up the contact tracing. And they say it's a little more difficult because in the questions that you would go through, then there are certain health recommendations that you would make based on the answer that the individual gives that you're talking to. But we are looking at eventually ramping up a program, and states across the country are all now looking at ramping up their Department of Health personnel because of this. And another option may be working with the private sector hospitals and the community health centers to see if they would be involved and have some trained personnel who could assist us in doing this contact tracing. But as far as per capita tests go, we have a good number, and you always want more than you have. I'm certainly in that corner of, I hope we're going to be doing more, but again, for the measure across the rest of the states, we're in the top 5, maybe even top 3. But Dr. Anderson is clear, we actually have more tests per capita than South Korea, but we are nowhere near their contact tracing protocols. We are nowhere near some of the other protocols that they have in place at their airports and in the sanitizing of areas that, where they find positives. And so, we are starting to move in that direction. And we are following, in particular, a lot of the planning being done here is based off of the New Zealand model.
Ron, Senator, I'm sorry. Some have mentioned before, and I'm looking at one of the questions on a private message, asking about, like, for Mel and myself, being former law enforcement, with contact tracing. I think when you speak to people, when you go out and speak to people, they want to know if the training that those individuals who handle that, if the questioning is similar to what law enforcement, how they question, because we look at deceptiveness, right? You got individuals that just don't want to be quarantined, and they're going to do everything, try to do something deceptive to the persons that's doing the interviewing of them. Do you know if those individuals that the DOH have that capability of, really looking at somebody and taking statements and being like, hey, something's just not right here, and keep on pushing it to the next level? I know this is not a police related matter, but I think when you're dealing with lives or potential lives that could be affected, you would want somebody to go up there and really push the envelope and try to see if there's a deception. Why is there a deception?
The short answer is no, Charlie, because we just simply haven't done it. But by the same token, I'm aware police officers, one of the training is verbal judo. So they work to teach you the skills about trying to de-escalate situations in a non-violent way by, learning how to use certain words or language or body posture. And so what it's going to take is time. And, we need to have a good training program in place. I think we would need to learn from places like South Korea or New Zealand, where they have done a better job. And, then once the people get in the jobs, the more they do it, the more proficient they will get. And those are skills that you acquire, but it's clearly not something you can just walk off the street and do. And so that's part of the challenge in trying to get better at this. And then we are the United States of America. We do have certain unalienable rights that each citizen is granted through the Constitution. So, we can't just walk in and say you're positive, pull you out of your house and just take you and throw you in an isolation center, like you saw some of those videos of what was occurring in China. And so we still need to implement all of these strategies within the framework of our Constitution and the rights of our citizens.
Well, I'm glad, because my next question, I'm glad you said that, because my next question was, do you think you need help training from the Philippines and President Duterte?
I hope not.
Lance, couple questions that are coming from the field.
Sure.
Can you ask Lance if he knows? And if you cannot answer, Lance, that's fine, because I think some of these are more like policy questions, laboratory questions. How long do they keep blood samples after a person passes away? Reason for my asking is my mother-in-law passed away on December 12th, and we suspect she had COVID-19, and we all got sick for 10 to 14 days after she passed.
Well, that is above me. So, I mean, I can find out what the answer
Yeah,
is.
no, I will follow up for
Okay,
that person.
okay,
Don't worry
yeah.
about that. The other question is, we know that 40% of the positives are asymptomatic, but that's what we've been told. The antibody test has been a buzzword lately. Is that available here on Kauai? If somebody wants an antibody test, do you know if they can walk in to their doctor's office and get one, even if they pay for it themselves?
As far as I'm aware, right now that test is not available here on Kauai. I did hear from some folks that there's a clinic uh, in Honolulu. It's a small clinic in Waikiki, I think, an urgent care clinic that announced they have access to it, but I've not confirmed that. But I know that that particular antibody test is becoming available throughout the United States. So I think that's something I think Department of Health is definitely looking at. So they would probably know more than I do about that situation. You know, Mel, I do want to mention something because I think it's really important and I want all the listeners to hear this. Very early on, when we knew that something was going to be happening with this virus, Jen Chohanovich, the CEO at Wilcox, and I got together. And from the very get-go, we knew the answer for Kauai was a combined effort between all of our hospitals. And that has been how we've approached this. And so, you know, I want to just assure the community that we're working very closely together, because the power of 3 hospitals is really unbelievable. And we would always continue working in a collaborative way. So you have really HVH, Wilcox, and HHSC really tight. And that's what we need for our community. And that's the way it's going to be. So I just wanted to share that.
We definitely appreciate that. Jan's a fantastic CEO. You know, she's incredible, and just got to meet you today right here online electronically. I mean, very impressed. So and appreciate. I think we all appreciate that. Anything that'll make us feel more comfortable. You know, it's just these questions that keep popping up. So I'm glad we got to.
Hey, Senator, question. You know, based on the recent hearings, or I guess advisories between the COVID Committee, Senate, and DOH, it hasn't been pretty, but has things settled? Because, you know, I guess everybody, they have that opportunity to watch it, yeah? And I know it starts.
The short answer is no. I've been copied on emails, and I saw that one of the requests for another appearance at the committee went to Dr. Anderson. You know, clearly when you don't get an invitation from the committee, that means that you have satisfactorily answered all of the questions, or you have implemented your program going forward that, you know, doesn't warrant you coming back anymore. So there are ongoing questions, but I think part of it may be just how do we ramp up to do contact testing? Where are our supplies? Maybe get a better understanding of, you know, what happened between Mayor Caldwell and his 10,000 kits from South Korea and the Department of Health concerns or directive that they should not purchase those. You know, so there's several questions, and it may not be about some of the things discussed in the past. The other thing, before I get too far away and get myself in trouble, as I gave all of this credit to Lance and Christine and the employees and the great work that they've done, clearly Nadine Nakamura is constantly in touch with him about what's happening at Samuel Mahilona, as it's in her district, and you know, she lives right next to the hospital, literally. And then in Waimea, Representative Morikawa is 1 or 2 blocks from KVMH. And although Wilcox is the hospital in Representative Tokioka's district, he's been at the legislature longer than all of us. And so we have all worked well as a team in working with Lance, working with Stephanie to meet the needs. Lance, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the different CIP funding that's come in and where or some of the other services that you're going to be able to provide now.
Okay. I think when I think about Nadine Nakamura, Representative Nakamura has been such a big supporter of Mahalona. And I'd say before the pandemic hit us for a solid 7 months, we were working on the Mahalona Master Campus Plan. And that was such an important planning effort that really looked out 10, 20 years to really understand what the community needed across the entire island. And at Mahalona, if you didn't know, we have the only inpatient behavioral health unit on island. We have 9 dedicated inpatient beds. And if you talk to people that are in the field of behavioral health, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, they'll tell you that we don't have enough services on island. So one area of focus was, what can we do to improve our behavioral health services? And Mahalona, being 34 acres of land, was an ideal place that we could begin planning. So that was happening. We also started looking at our long-term care needs. No secret, our residents are getting older. All of us are getting older. So sorry about that. I'm including myself. And we have to plan for that eventuality. So that effort was such a really open effort. We had various groups from the community. We had professionals in behavioral health, long-term care, kind of help us plan. And we actually came up with a draft concept.
Plans?
What's that?
Kauai Police Department as well.
Absolutely. KPD was part of that. We were looking at moving their Kapa'a substation to our campus. In the last iteration, even the state library was a potential facility that would get relocated, community services. So, unfortunately, everything kind of came to a stop because of the pandemic. But our next meeting was going to be a community-wide meeting, especially for the people that live in Kapa'a, to really begin to see what that vision would look like. And obviously, it would take money, and we were thinking we could make this a public-private kind of initiative. And so that was happening. We also got legislative support for a CT scan at Mahalona. It never had one, and that would be kind of a game changer in terms of providing more diagnostic capability at the hospital. We also got some funding to improve equipment over at KVMH. So, there's a lot of things that really have been going on just in the last year and a half. And we couldn't do it without support from the ledge. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any questions?
There's a bunch of questions, but I mean, a lot of the questions are about it's Department of Health questions, and I have extended an invitation out to the mayor's office to see if we could get Dr. Berriman here to come on. I guess she's busy. I don't think Bruce Anderson would come on our show, but I think a lot of the questions involve the quarantine and the visitors, and we still get questions about how come tourists still coming. Tourists are still going to come, and come May 1st, we're going to see more of them. And then I think that's a concern of mine. But as far as the hospitals, I think it's critical that, and somebody asked if you could last one more time, somebody posted, they may have come on late, the number of beds that we have available in the event we need them? If the surge happens, how many beds do we have again island-wide?
Approximately between the three hospitals, we're estimating between 125, 132 potential beds that could be dedicated to a COVID infected patient population. And within that, up to, this is round figures, 34, 35 ICU beds supported by ventilators. So that's sort of the upper end of the surge scenario, so.
How many ventilators do we have on the island?
We have at KVMH potentially up to 6, 7. Mahialona has one, which we would leave at Mahialona just in case we needed it in the emergency room. And don't quote me, but I think the last report I saw from Wilcox, they could go up to high 20s, something like that. So, because within the HB8 system, I think, they're able to move things around too, if they needed to. So, again, based on the numbers that we see here on Kauai, I mean, that capacity looks reasonable, so.
Now, I know one of the questions was how many hospital beds do we have for the positives? Not every positive gets admitted to the hospital.
No.
I think
No,
the vast majority of positives recover. They
Correct.
recover at home,
exactly.
and they don't require hospitalization. So I think that's critical. We make that separation between
Absolutely.
just the fact that you're positive doesn't mean you're going to go take up a bed or a ventilator.
Right.
And the
But
vast
you know,
majority of
let me
positives.
let
Go
me
ahead,
share
go ahead.
something with you again. When my brother contracted the virus in New York, I'll give you a timeline, and not exact date, but I'll use the days how it transpired. I spoke to him on a Sunday after he had posted the previous day, Saturday, that he had contracted the virus, and 4 days prior to that, he posted that and he advised us that he had gone shopping. He just felt a little tired. That was the whole gist of things.
Mm.
So that Sunday when I talked to him, he said that the doctors told him that if he can go for 3 days without a fever, that he pretty much in the clear, but that he tested positive. That was on a Sunday. Monday, I called him in New York. And the time I called him here would have made it maybe about 5 in the afternoon, their time. So I got no response. And it wasn't until Tuesday, I was informed by his girlfriend that he was admitted Monday night in respiratory distress. So now think about it. Sunday, he's talking perfectly fine. From that day on, my brother never talked again because he was immediately ventilated. It went from the symptoms itself just crashed one time. And in 2 days after that, he went on dialysis. It was that fast. So basically what transpired, and I think that's what people need to understand. And that's why Mel asked you the question about the ventilators, that, there's a group of people that doesn't have any kind of underlying condition. They're pretty strong. Maybe they got a mild form of it. But then there's a group that can be the same, but they really get a hard hit and they go down fast. So if we're talking about, say, maybe 30 max of ventilators, and should something start up, take a turn for the worse, I think that's what a lot of us are worried about, is whether the hospitals have that capacity, because we're looking, we can't medevac everybody all at once, but we're looking about a good amount of sizable numbers there that could possibly be like those New York hospitals where you got whole wards, everybody filled up with some type of ventilator system.
I want to say this. Our medical professionals, our physicians, clinicians, specialists, they've all weighed in on the surge plan. Their knowledge, their wisdom is so crucial at this time. And, in combination with the professionals at Department of Health, I mean, I'm not a clinician. and so I'm very dependent on those professionals to really guide us with respect to the capacity issue. So, right now I'm comfortable based on their assessment of everything. And, I think it's just something that we have to watch. Again, I'm not a clinician, so I know that, a physician might say everyone's a little different. And that's something that is important to understand. So I think it might be a good thing for, now you and to Charlie to maybe, have a physician on your show and who can address very specific things about the condition, so, but our plan is based on all that input and advisement, so.
So Mel,
Yeah.
We had Dr. Josh Green on our.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
he pretty much explained to us a lot about the actual condition,
Yeah.
the different types of, the different things that patients go through. Did a
Right.
graphic explanation of what happens to your lungs, and
And we did the same thing with Dr. Miskovich. I told him exactly what my brother went through all the way
Yeah.
up until the time he passed away. And, because I was being fed the information back here in Hawaii.
Mhm.
So, having worked at the ME's office in Honolulu, you kind of already starting to get this tunnel, and you know that things are not going to turn out good. But
Right.
you try to hope for the best. But I think when you got a lot of people that first time are being exposed to something like this,
Mhm.
you can imagine that their thought process is being really shaken up, and it's
Mhm.
trying to bring it under control. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Hey, by the way, Charlie, sorry for your loss. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, please go ahead. Go ahead.
I think, when I think about even my employees, it's so important that we base our decisions with fact. And, I talk to my employees constantly about let's not do things out of fear, but let's do it out of knowledge. Yeah. We have good science, we're making decisions. And the main thing is that internally, we understand why we make decisions and we're utilizing good information. That's so important. And, we see part of our role as educating our community too, because we don't want anyone in the community to be afraid if they don't have to be. So when this pandemic hit, we spent a lot of time talking about how we would field phone calls to our clinics and to the hospital. And we really made sure that we had a good kind of script so that, we could provide good guidance because that's what people were looking for. Yeah. People wanted answers. And, we didn't want to give answers if we didn't have it. And if we did, it had to be based on good information and fact. So, that's why I thought this would be a good opportunity to really provide some information to the community. It's all, it's all
And we-
based on fact.
And we so appreciate you coming on. I mean, I really appreciate you coming on. And, tonight at 8:00, right after this, PBS is having a special. The 4 mayors are going to be there to discuss COVID-19. That's going to be interesting. So I don't want to go too long because I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity. I know some have DVRs, some don't. So, but that'll be at 8:00 tonight on PBS. I did want to cover, and Lance, our, like we do for not all of our guests, but most of them, there's an open invitation. As things change in the next couple of weeks with the increased amount of testing that's going to happen or should be happening, we'd love to have you back and to discuss any kinds of changes. I think it's important that people understand. I think, like I said, tonight, a lot of people felt some level of relief knowing that some are not. Some are saying there's not enough beds. Again, the bottom line is we have the 3 hospitals working together, and if the surge happens, we believe that it is in fact adequate. I did want to allow Senator Kouchi to discuss, this whole thing with Mayor Caldwell suggesting that maybe Kauai be used as a test location for visitors. I'm not sure what
Let's
he
not
was
go there, Mel. You know how I feel about that.
Well, I already went there. It's going. And the reason I brought that up was I watched it, and I think I knew what he was trying to say, but it came across as tourism first, residents second. That's how I got it. He started off actually pretty good. We're going to open up parks and when gradually open, but then he came about, we need tourism. We need to open tourism. And yes, we may not be able to open tourism here on Oahu, but there are some islands. He used Lanai and Kauai, basically because we're so successful. Maybe we could do a test island, do a test. Use Kauai as a test case is what he said. We can use Kauai as a test case for the visitors. So I just wanted to give Senator Kouchi an opportunity to share his sentiments on that.
Well, I certainly let him know in no uncertain terms that we're not going to be a test case for anybody. And what is clear is that Kauai has the numbers they have because the residents have made a tremendous commitment to follow the rules. And more importantly, it's come at great personal sacrifice and loss to achieve this. And for someone else to say, let's see how you do. And if it's okay, we'll go ahead. And if it starts running rampant, then we know we can't do it. And oh, by the way, too bad for you guys. Then all of the sacrifice by our residents would have been for nothing. And so that's not what we're going to do. We're going to follow the process. It's important to know. I was in a conference call at 5 o'clock. We're hoping maybe sometime next week that we will have clear protocols based on science and the medical facts that at stage 4, which we're at in lockdown, what do we need to do to go to stage 3? And you would have how many positives you've tested for over what period of time, percentages. If we go to stage 3, what businesses are those that open? What would be best practices that need to be put in place as those businesses reopen? I did apologize on the Star Advertiser thing when I talked earlier to Maria Lani Richardson. I said, well, as we open things up, I really hope I can, have someone who would cut my hair. I haven't had a haircut since March 12th. And clearly it's a close contact business. So we need to find what would be best practices. Do they have to wear the shield, the plastic shield guard, face guards like doctors wear? It's clear that whoever goes in to get their hair cut needs to be wearing a mask. And so, these things need to be carefully thought about as we roll out. But we're hoping to have a whole matrix in place that would spell as you transition from each zone to the next what it is. Tomorrow at noon, we'll have the Attorney General, Chris Tatum, and DOT airports present. They are trying to put in stricter protocols as to what we do with these guests that arrive. I don't know if it's legal, but I've talked to Chair Dela Cruz. I know the committee is going to put the question to the AG. Can we simply have the bus waiting at the airport, and when you come in and you are from the mainland, you go directly to a quarantine site, whether it's a designated hotel, University of Hawaii dorms if they're not being put in use, but we would have much better control of the situation. Clearly there was difficulty in just dealing with 100 visitors who came in and on the current system. So that won't work when we're going to have several thousand visitors start hitting the shores. But I want to end on a high note, and I know about the 8 o'clock, and I'm lucky enough to have a DVR. But we were down at the convention center today, had a chance to meet with Scott Murakami, with the people who were trained on Monday and were able to help his staff on Tuesday. They went through and processed 2,500 claims. That doesn't mean they're all final. Some of them they'll flag and say, this is more, material or information needed. Yesterday was the first day when they had the full complement of volunteers who were trained. They went through over 10,000 claims yesterday. And as people get more proficient who are being trained to do this, we'll be able to ramp up even more. And there are more volunteers who are coming. So we are looking at expanding call centers to bring in more capacity. So we're hoping to be a lot better at getting those checks to everybody who needs those unemployment checks so badly. Last Wednesday, they finally started mailing out the $600 checks that they were not prepared for. It's not part of their system. That is additional money from the federal government. And if you're an independent contractor and like those Uber and Lyft drivers, you don't pay into the unemployment insurance system. So you don't get a check or qualify, but the federal government has given the state the responsibility of getting those checks to these independent contractors. So they are still working on the system that would deliver that. So that's why most of them who are applying are getting you're rejected, because normally under the state system, you don't pay into the unemployment and you're not qualified to draw it down. But hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel. We have significantly ramped up the capacity and are really going through a significant amount of the applications each day now. Now that this is working well, next week they're going to split into 2 6-hour shifts. So they'll start at 7 a.m. to increase the time that they're available and working.
Thank you very much. That is definitely good news for those still waiting for their checks. The show has started. Lance, if you wanted to go over the times again at the testing, drive-through testing at
Currently,
KVH, any closing comments that you may have?
Yeah, I do want to clarify one thing, because I know there's anxiety about the bed capacity. So the bed capacity is with our current hospitals, but you remember I said we're part of the emergency task force at the state level, and they're prepared to open up portable hospitals if needed. Yeah. So I think that's important for everyone to understand. We are part of a statewide coordinated effort. I just want to also do a shout out and a big thank you to my team, the Kauai region staff. I'm biased, but I think I've got the best employees around. And so I want to acknowledge them. And thank you to both you and Charlie for having me here. And it's been my privilege to be alongside Senator Kouchi. Thank you.
Right on. Awesome. Awesome. Well, you know, we know that May 1st is going to be a challenge. I think it's going to be we're going to wait and see what happens. We know that for Kauai anyway, Delta now is going to be having 7 nights a week direct to Lihue. The bottom line is this, is that all the major airlines requested an exemption to continue or to restart or resume flights to Hawaii. The exemptions were applied for and granted, although they are not allowed to fly to any neighbor island airport. So all the mainland flights are going to have to be flying to Oahu, but that doesn't mean those people are going to stay on Oahu. They're going to get on a connecting flight and they're going to go to the neighbor islands. So May 1st is going to be a challenge, I think, for many of us. We're going to see an uptick in visitors. We're going to see an uptick of activity. And yes, the state is putting together some safety nets to make sure these people quarantine, but we know human nature. And, it's not about trying to scare anybody. This is the reality of it. And I think we got to understand that the importance of us taking care of ourselves, us staying at home, us washing our hands, us not touching your face, us practicing the 6-foot rule. See, it doesn't matter how many tourists come in if we protect ourselves and we don't come in contact with them. Those are things we don't have control over. And until the state gets, I love the idea of bus to the hotel or bus to the dorms. That I'll feel comfortable with. Until that happens, I am not comfortable, and I don't think these people should be coming here. Anybody should be coming here right now, not during this pandemic. So anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go because I think you all want to watch the 4 mayors. There's a call-in number. They're taking questions. So please tune in. Charlie?
Yes.
Did you want to, Ron, you had anything you wanted to close out with real quick?
That was my closing. Thank you guys again. Thank you, Lance.
Thank you again. Thanks, Lance. Charles?
Yes.
Did you want to let's forego
yes,
the tradition?
yes. Yeah.
Let us forego the tradition. Guys, if you guys want the shirt, private message me, $10. Hawaii Community Foundation. We usually do a flattening the curve. We're not going to do it tonight because I want you guys to watch the mayor's thing, and I want to go watch the mayor's thing, and I don't have a DVR. All right, guys, we love you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, same place, same time. Thanks, Lance, Senator.
Thank you,
guys have a
Lance. Thank
wonderful
you, Senator.
day.
Bye.
Aloha.